Apparently a step closer to performing surgery, which sounds like something from a horror novel. Transplanting a human head onto another body. An Italian surgeon claims it is now possible, and the first patient has been found. RT has been speaking to him.
Valery Spiridonov was born with a rare genetic muscle wasting condition. People with this illness usually don't live for more than 20 years. But not only is Valery 30 years old now, he managed to get a higher education and works as a computer scientist for an IT company. But the biggest challenge of his life is still ahead. Valery is aiming to become the first human to undergo a body transplant surgery, attaching his head to a different body. He says his condition gets worse every year and getting a new body is the only solution, even though there's a big chance he won't survive.
I'm very interested in technology and anything progressive that might change people's lives for the better. Doing this isn't only an excellent opportunity for me, but will also create a scientific basis for future generations, no matter what the actual outcome of the surgery is.
A few years ago, Italian neuroscientist Dr. Sergio Canavero announced he was planning to conduct the surgery as soon as 2017 and picked Valery, who contacted him by email. We managed to speak with Dr. Canavero.
Russia sent Yuri Gagarin into space with fair chances of dying. America sent Neil Armstrong to the moon with fair chances of dying. And the chances here are much better than were those of those two men.
Dr. Canavero says the controversial operation could last up to 36 hours and cost over $11 million. During the procedure, Valery's brain will have to be cooled down to 10-15 degrees Celsius, which is about 50-60 degrees Fahrenheit, so to extend the time its cells can survive without oxygen. An ultra-sharp scalpel will be needed to cut through the spinal cord, and besides ordinary stitches, a special biological glue will be used to connect the head to the new body. Then Valery will be put into a coma for 3 to 4 weeks to prevent movement and subjected to immunosuppressants so that his new body doesn't reject the head. Surgeons are wary of the idea. One Californian doctor said it was an overwhelming project, unlikely to succeed. Others say it's too outlandish for serious consideration, and some even said it was plain crazy. Dr. Canavero is set to officially present the idea at an upcoming science convention, adding research in this field may help save the lives of people with severe illnesses across the whole world.
Well, transplant experiments have been around for generations, but have made significant leaps in recent decades. The first successful transplant on a person was back in 1905, when a cornea was replaced. 60 years later, a patient in South Africa received a new heart. When it comes to entire limbs being replaced, surgeons gave a man in France a new right hand in 1998, and 5 years ago, a Spanish man underwent a full face transplant. The United States is not ready to ditch its plans to set up missile defence bases in Europe, even though the key reason behind their implementation is no longer so clear-cut. Washington originally wanted to protect its allies from the threat posed by what it called rogue states, such as Iran. But even with the nuclear deal struck last week, Americans aren't giving up on the idea. Now, under the so-called phased adaptive approach, the US has put warships across the Mediterranean Sea, including in Spain. A missile defence base in Romania with American interceptors is expected to be completed by the end of this year. And there will be more interceptors in Poland, with a site there due to become operational within 3 years. Turkey already has a radar, which is now under NATO's operational control. Well, one country that's likely to be relieved the shield's still on track will be Israel. In 2012, the Israeli Prime Minister's speech at the UN featured a cartoon drawing of a bomb and a red line to indicate how close Iran was to making nuclear weapons. But this week, the White House Twitter feed poked fun at Netanyahu, posting the same image, but with the fuse cut by a pair of scissors. It also details how the deal with Iran will actually shut down Iran's path to nuclear weapons. But as Gane Chichikan reports, the US interceptors may have someone else in mind.
U.S. officials say the missile shield against Iran will go ahead, even if it's no longer a nuclear threat.
Does the agreement with Iran affect the missile defense plans? We have concerns about Iran's conventional weapons, including ballistic missiles, separate from the nuclear program. Obviously, that's not that doesn't go away. Those concerns don't go away with the nuclear agreement.
So would you say that the U.S. will proceed with missile defense plans?
We've said that the reason for missile defense is the Middle East, obviously Iran, but I don't have anything to announce for you today on any changes to that.
When George W. Bush started the missile shield in Europe, he cited the nuclear threat from Iran.
The need for missile defense in Europe is real, and I believe it's urgent. Iran is pursuing the technology that could be used to produce nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles of increasing range that could deliver them.
Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, and the U.S. is now working as part of the team to make sure it won't have one. But Washington's reasoning for the European missile shield has evolved.
That can shift and change. The real reason is the U.S. wants to extend military power right up onto Russia's border and other countries in that part of the world. And that's the reason, and has always been the reason, for the missile defense shield.
The U.S. denies that Russia is the reason for its missile defense system in Europe. For years, the U.S. has maintained that the missile defense system is not against Russia. Would
That's
you
true.
say the same now?
Correct, absolutely. We have been crystal clear about that, yes.
Russia wants the U.S. to provide legally binding, written guarantees that the shield will never be used to neutralize Russia's nuclear deterrent. But Washington refuses to do so. Russia says with the U.S. missile defense system in Europe, Russia would have to build up its capacities to restore the balance of power. That means building more weapons. For years, Moscow has been saying, if the system is not against Russia, let's make a joint missile shield. The U.S. would say no. With political tensions between the two countries as they are now, that prospect of a joint missile shield looks even more remote.
You're watching RT International. Have more news coming your way after a short break.